Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Northern Lights Canadian Women in Tech and Business, where we highlight the incredible journeys of inspiring women who are shaping the future of technology and business in Canada. Today, we have the honor of speaking with another trailblazer in the tech world, Shelby Austin. Shelby Austin is the founder and CEO of Arteria AI and a fintech finance organization that works with some of the largest financial institutions in the world and provides them with the documentation infrastructure to surveil deals with clients and manage their unstructured data. Arteria was recognized by Gartner as a cool vendor for AI banking and named one of the 100 most promising AI companies by CB Insights. Before Arteria AI, she was with Deloitte, where she served as managing partner of growth and investments in AI. Before Deloitte, Shelby was the founder of ATD Legal, which is a high growth startup that was acquired by Deloitte. Shelby has also been a partner at Bay Street Seven Sister Law Firm, where she focused on corporate and commercial litigation. She's also received numerous awards, including the Rising Stars Award given by Lexpert magazine to Canada's leading lawyers under 40, and Canada's Most Powerful Women Top 100 Award given by the Women's Executive Network. Recently, she's been named Fast Case 50 for her work as an innovator. Shelby, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so happy to be speaking with you.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Okay. So let's just go through a few questions here. Why don't we start with, so you're originally an attorney who focused on corporate litigation. So what inspired you to pursue a career in tech and business?
I suppose what I saw around the law firm was actually just tons and tons of challenges where we used to print things out to review them. And as data increased significantly, we realized that we weren't managing this sort of document um, pile with any sort of clarity. And so I suppose what inspired me is that as an associate who sat there and reviewed document after document, and then as partner doing the same, is that there must have been a better way to do that. I think that this is how a lot of people's businesses start, is that they just see a problem that they want to solve. And so for me, I have been consistently inspired by how we take information out of documents and use it for business purposes. And so I suppose I got into tech as the answer to solving that problem.
That's great to hear. And, so amazing to see your passion for tech and business flourish and continue. Can you tell us a bit about your first exposure to AI and what it taught you?
Yeah, so my first exposure to AI was at ATD. We were using sort of I mean, AI is probably a generous word for it, but
Mhm.
we're using early techniques to retrieve and understand parts of documentation. These days, that would be done using like multimodal models or Gen AI or like lot
Mhm.
fancier type items. But at the time, that was my first exposure. And what I realized is that while the journey's come so far, that even those early techniques, which have gotten like worlds better since then,
Mhm.
were so helpful, and that really there was no point in not being efficient. And I suppose I was just attracted to AI because of its significant ability to become a tool in the toolbox of innovators looking to make change and drive efficiency.
Amazing. Kind of branching off of that, can you tell us about your experience, what it was like founding ATD Legal?
Well, so I had no MBA, I had no business experience, I had nothing. And so I started ATD really just focused on solving a problem. And, you know, looking back, I did things kind of in a wild way. I like rented several thousand square feet and I bought
Mhm.
tens of computers like on day one, and I had nothing
Yeah.
and no experience. And so I suppose the experience of founding ATD was deeply exciting. It was one of those businesses that just almost from the third or fourth month became
Mhm.
a raging success. I mean, we grew to being several hundred people over the first couple of years in part or full time roles, and so it was really just an extraordinary growth story.
Hmm.
And so I suppose it was just neat because I was learning on the job how to be a CEO. At the time, I was relatively young. I think I was 28 or 29. And it was just a wild experience of like just trying to figure out like what made sense, what made a difference to my
Hmm.
business, P&Ls, and trying to learn the technology at the same time. Like I was basically unskilled at everything I was touching at the time, and really just learning and iterating and failing and learning and iterating and failing. And so, yeah, the experience of founding ATD was a bananas experience,
Hmm.
because I was so inexperienced, but also truly had like the guts of a startup and the vim and vigor of like youth and energy. And yeah, it was an incredible time, an incredible story. I always think of those days where we would have like 10 people start, let's say on a Monday, and we would have to say to them, "Oh, I'm so sorry, we don't have your chairs yet. But they're supposed to come. They're supposed to be here on Friday and they're not here yet. So if you could just go and have a Starbucks on us and come back, that would be amazing." And so that's the kind of bananas that that was happening at ATD. But it was, yeah, looking back, it was a pretty neat story.
Yeah, that's a really cool journey. And, it really shows that business is all about trial and error, as you kind of touched on. So, kind of leading right into that topic, can you tell us a little bit about how ATD Legal was acquired for Deloitte and how you eventually became the managing partner of growth and investments in artificial intelligence?
Yes, for sure I can. So, we had a lot of interest around the business, like just over the years, some people to partner with, people to acquire us. And so I was in the market looking for a large scale partner, to help us with some of our technical needs. Um, and I had just also had my first child. So I sold ATD, I think 2 weeks after I had my baby. So crazy time to sell a business. Um, and the truth was, I wasn't sure that I I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. I was this crazy CEO, had this huge company, and had a new baby, and I just wasn't sure. And so at the right time, when Deloitte came forward, it just felt like a really, really amazing end to that story. In that A, it was a really successful exit, but B, in addition, it felt like I could still preserve the legacy of what this company was, and
Hmm.
that Deloitte is like a global, amazing firm. And it felt like by selling to Deloitte, I would ensure that this thing that I built would exist in 100 years. And there was
Hmm.
something so beautiful about that for me, that while we had other offers, some more lucrative, there was something about joining sort of the global brand and juggernaut that was
Hmm.
Deloitte that really appealed to my need to sort of have long-term impact with that company. Um, I can't believe I'm saying this, but at Deloitte, like most, if not all, of the people we brought in have stuck with it and are still there today. And I'm not even still there, but it's actually kind of a neat story. When I got to Deloitte, I had never worked at a place. I mean, I had now been a lawyer,
Hmm.
and I had been a really, really trial and error learned CEO. But by then I learned a little bit, but I certainly didn't know anything about consulting. And I didn't know anything about working as a corporate sort of division lead, because I'd never done that. And I'd never worked in a large corporation other than law firms, which operate a little bit differently. And
Hmm.
so as a result, coming into Deloitte, I was floored by so many things, but I was also particularly interested in this idea that they treated managers as being skilled in management, and that being a totally different discipline than your technical discipline. I'd always worked in environments where I was a lawyer and a manager of people. There was no distinction between those. And so Deloitte was the first place where they would ask you to do a job where you had no particular expertise, just because they thought you could manage or be a leader or run a P&L. And so very early on in my time there, they asked me to come and lead innovation, and then they asked me to lead analytics, and
Hmm.
then they asked me to lead AI, and like there was just so much, so much growth there over that time. because they were allowing me to do all sorts of things I didn't feel I was qualified for, and they were allowing me to do it, and continue this trial and error. Which, while at ATD, it felt like completely unmanageable and
Right.
crazy way to learn. It, in fact, was a really effective way to learn. And really, I think I did well there because I said yes all the time.
Hmm.
I was willing to take chances. My primary focus was on my learning journey and really ensuring that I was continuing to build skills with great focus to keep trying to learn and learn and learn. And so I suppose that's how I ended up in my last role, which was running growth and investments for them, including AI and others. But yeah, it was really really so incredible that they had sponsorship and time to give me to continue to grow in each of the roles. And in any corporation, which I didn't really understand, is like I kind of would just go to people with ideas I would have for the business. Like this is a common theme in my life where I just see a lot of things that I really feel passionate about fixing or changing.
Yeah.
And so I would come and like write proposals about why I wanted to change this one thing for the firm. And I don't think anyone had really seen that before. And so it would always land with me sort of ending up um, running a little bit more for them because I would bring forward a plan and they would say, okay, like go for it, like give it a
Yeah.
go and let us know how it goes. And trust me, they didn't always work, but for the most part, I think I won more than I lost.
Yeah, I think that was an amazing answer. And, what a great experience you've had there. And, you had the road to Arteria AI. So I'm very curious to know where did the idea come from and what specific need did the company fill that wasn't by others?
Yeah, so I still continue to be inspired by efficiency, and I still continue to be inspired by this really beautiful notions of unstructured data. So one of the very unknown facts is that about 80 to 90% of a corporation's IP sits within documents or unstructured data throughout their organization. And that makes sense, right? When we think about that, like pick any company in the world. I don't know, I'm going to pick a random one like, Coca-Cola.
Hmm.
They need to order the bottles, they need to make them, they have manufacturing, like everything. There's paper everywhere and documents everywhere. There's like factory plans and invoices, and I mean it's hard to even imagine the scope of all of that. And so much of the recipes, I guess, are probably like critical. Anyway, there's so
Hmm.
much that's in documentation, and that it is crazy to also think that less than 1% of that information is surfaced up to make decisions. So we have so much of our intellectual property sitting in this paper.
Hmm.
I use the word paper like loosely, in this digital paper. And yet we have no ability to access that. And so still now this idea of how organizations make decisions using large scale pieces of information is just a beautiful thing. So how do we gain efficiency? How do we minimize risk? How do
Hmm.
we, increase transparency? Like these are all sort of really amazing things that we can do if we surface more information to help us make decisions in organizations. And the need that we were filling is there is a lot of tech in this space, in particular, since the sort of popularity has increased with large language models. Like everyone is in the unstructured data space. What we offer is that because we work very particularly with financial services institutions around the world, we understand context and we understand
Hmm.
exactly what we're trying to achieve. And so I think this marriage of trying to figure out what people are trying to achieve, along with having world-class technology in the space, was what ultimately led us to be able to do well in the space.
Yeah, you made some really great points there. And, as many people are so afraid of like continued AI developments in technology, what's your opinion on the subject and where do you see the power of AI developing throughout the business sector in Canada?
Yeah, so gosh, I mean, there are many, many smart people who have big opinions on this subject, right? Like
Hmm.
Jack Hinton would tell us that the world is ending, and many others agree with him. And then there are other folks who would tell us that, like, we have nothing to fear. I'm thinking about like Jan LeCun and others who are brilliant. And then we have people who, obviously tell us that AI will cure sickness. I think it was like maybe Zuckerberg who said that. There's basically like, there are really brilliant people, and we tend to find that they either like hate AI or love AI and think it's going to change the world. I probably fall somewhere in the middle.
Hmm.
What we need to realize is that the AI that we're deploying today couldn't pick up a gun and like do something bad. Like the AI that we're deploying in corporations today that read documents is like pretty humble.
Hmm.
It has about, less understanding of the world than the average 4-year-old. And so
Yeah.
we're really like, we're quite far away from these concerns. And so what I think is not necessarily acknowledged is that there would need to be a step change before we would see the harm. Now, does that mean that we shouldn't think about the harm? No, we should be
Mhm.
absolutely careful and critical and continue to challenge what's happening. And the smart people I just mentioned will undoubtedly do that.
Mhm.
I'm not qualified to opine on when general intelligence is coming because I don't know. What I do know is that as business leaders, in particular in Canada, that the world is going ahead and using the efficiency tools all over the world, and that this AI that we have today has no relationship to the AI that could potentially, create challenges in the future. Um, as a result, especially because of geopolitically kind of the face off between the US and China, where
Mhm.
AI is being developed at a rapid rate. I think I read last week that China is putting in another $142 billion into AI.
Wow.
Insane.
Yeah.
And I don't mean insane like it's crazy. I mean insane like it's a big number.
Yeah.
Um, so and so what we're seeing is that this is happening anyway. And if we in Canada think that we can choose not to use this when our neighbors to the south are, the horse has left the
Mhm.
barn. And so the question is, geopolitically, if you're in a country like Canada, you know, we will lose GDP.
Mhm.
Like we almost have no choice but to try and sort of take our share. And so I would say it is an economic imperative for Canadians to both buy and understand AI.
Mhm.
And in Canadian business, we absolutely know that the winners will be using AI. And as a result, we need to start our journey with AI sooner and sooner. The biggest challenge in Canada is that while Canada has something like the fifth largest talent pool for AI in the world, which is unreal. Like this is a real hub of differentiated AI, and all the godfathers live here. And this was really the birthplace of deep learning, right? So we have a raison d'etre in terms of like AI, and yet Canadian corporations don't really purchase a lot of AI, and so we're going to have Canadians and Canadian startups and others leave the country. And so it's actually I would say it's an economic imperative for us to almost make like a promise to our startups and to our innovators to that we will try and foster this ecosystem. And so Canadian companies should buy AI. And that's totally self-serving, of course, but also even if they don't buy Arteria, they should buy other AI companies, is how I'll make it less biased.
Mhm. It definitely is a very wide range and opinionated topic for sure. Um, Now kind of just switching gears here and onto the personal side. How would you say that being a woman has affected you in various professional roles and now being the founder and CEO of your own company?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. In my early career, I wouldn't have thought it made a difference. In fact, I'm not sure it did. I was a young lawyer, and but I think the trick is that there is no sense of a glass ceiling until you're near the ceiling. And I wish someone would have explained this to me when I was younger, because I was always like, what are these women going on about?
Hmm.
And why is there a challenge? But as you get more and more closer to that ceiling, the ceiling actually becomes like, pretty hard to break through. And so I would say at a more junior level,
Hmm.
no challenge. As I got more senior and felt the weight of that ceiling, In particular, because I became, like the only woman in many rooms. If you look at women who run AI companies in financial services in the world, I mean, we're now down to like, I don't know, very few. And so, the technical world is very male dominated. The financial services world is very male dominated. The
Yeah.
legal world is, basically every
Hmm.
space I've worked in has been like that. So I would just say, it's important to recognize that you're going to be uh, challenged by that. There is still very much a pay equity gap that we have to be very aware of.
Hmm.
Uh, there is for sure unconscious bias in there. But on the positive side, I'm noticed pretty quickly, like,
Yeah.
so if one of these things just doesn't belong here, it does mean that you're going to get a lot of differentiated attention. And it does mean that often people will remember you. And so I try and spend less time focused on where those challenges are, unless I can impact them. Like, for example, when I was younger and would have told you that there was no challenge, that wasn't actually serving any of the women that came behind me. And so it's actually like, it's really important if you're a senior woman to
Mhm.
acknowledge just how challenging it is and how much adversity girls and women will face as they grow up. And that particularly in STEM fields, which is why we're so passionate about Bransom's, new, but particularly in STEM fields, and in financial services fields, like it's a challenge. And so, while I continue to try and sort of just keep going up and up,
Yeah.
I'm also, I suppose, keenly aware to put a hand to help my fellow women up, as they do for me. And so some of the stuff I do is like I participate in an awesome, awesome women founders circle where these women are CEOs and they are kick ass. I mean, they're so good. And
Yeah.
so, um, and
That's
so I,
awesome.
yeah, it's, and these sorts of spaces, like I'm deeply committed to STEM and girls in STEM. And I'm also deeply committed to like women helping women forums. It's my jam.
That's great to hear. And you made some really good points about how gender roles still play, a very solid role even today in business. And, I think it would be really great to hear a little bit about some significant challenges you faced in your career and how you overcame them.
Um, Gosh, what are the significant challenges I faced in my career? You know, real, like many young associates, I faced some harassment. It wasn't
Hmm.
great. It's not something I like to think about, because it's such a small part of my story and people have had it so much worse than I have. But
Hmm.
that's the truth, is that still happens. Um, so that's probably like captain number one,
Hmm.
clearly. But on a smaller scale, I think it's like, um, women who, like me, raise funds from venture capitalists. I think that that's a really interesting journey. I think the statistics don't lie. I think it's less than 2% of the take is given to women, despite the fact that women-led companies tend to produce more profit. And so, and these are not my words, these are like studies and whatnot, but so I think that was certainly probably the most recent challenge that's been on my mind.
Hmm.
And everything in between. Sometimes it's a matter of not being invited to a golf game, right? Where it
Right.
was something little, where someone didn't invite me, and
Hmm.
and that was not intentional, but certainly has an impact. If everyone else is spending 5 hours on the golf course with our boss, and I'm not included, that's not good.
Hmm.
And so I would say those are the types of items that being a woman, I think, has been tough. But again, I cannot sort of overstate enough that standing out in a crowd, like, I hope that this is not the future. So I
Hmm.
hope that women don't stand out in the crowd in the future. I hope that, you know, I saw this ad. I think I can't remember who it was, but it was like, stop being exceptional. Like,
Uh-huh.
stop being the only woman in the lab, stop being the only woman on the production line, stop being the only woman, like, and I think that that's hugely powerful. But in the meantime, when it's still like this,
Mhm.
I probably, well, I probably have only done as well as I have because I'm a woman, and so there are some. It can be quite a complicated story. And apologies for my ramble, but I just think it's really important to be authentic on the subject because you know because it's complicated
Yeah.
and it's very it's very messy, and I hope that by the time you are a CEO of a major public company, that 50% of those slots will be for women. But we still have a very, very long way to go. And I am afraid that we are not making progress as fast as we should be.
Mhm.
The truth is like COVID was very challenging for women, in particular mummies.
Mhm.
And and we just continue to do one step forward, two steps back, and we really have to do like 20 steps forward. So
Yeah.
there's a journey to go.
Yeah, and I think that leads perfectly into my next question, which is what advice would you give to young girls and women who aspire to build a career in tech and business?
I think great female leaders, great leaders in general, will just
Mhm.
do. And so I would say develop a bias to action and go forth and just go for it. And
Mhm.
so don't spend too much time sort of like you need a solid plan, of course. You need a solid
Mhm.
business plan. You need lots of
Mhm.
planning, but you can't never start. And so there's a guy by the name of Guy Kawasaki who wrote a book called Art of the Start. And
Yeah.
we need to make sure that we're pushing forward, and we need to make sure that we are like just going forth. And so my best advice is don't stunt your growth by self limitations and fear of failure. Um, if you try and it doesn't work, there is still beauty in the trying, and
Mhm.
that it recharacterize everything. And it probably took me until I was 35 to do this. So it's not, I'm like very imperfect, but if you recharacterize everything as a learning experience, you can process things much more easily, especially when you mess stuff up. And also the best, like in these female founders circle, like it's okay to mess stuff up
Mhm.
a lot. And in fact, there's no one who's successful in the world who just doesn't mess up every day, because we mess up many times a day.
Yeah.
And it's the reason why we get so far is because, if you mess up, you just kind of keep going and that's it. So
Yeah. Thank you so much for that advice, Shelby. I think it's going to be really helpful for a lot of young girls who are listening and looking to follow in your footsteps. So, I'm really interested to know what do you see as the most exciting opportunities and trends in the Canadian tech ecosystem over the next decade?
I think the AI story is just getting started. So
Hmm.
I think, in fact, there is lots of room. And so for me, and I am not a digital assets thesis driven person, and I'm
Hmm.
not a like I'm not behind every trend out there. So when I say that, I mean very specifically, I think AI has a long way to go. Um, and that's probably what I'm most bullish about. And I have put my career where my mouth is, I guess, and have really been quite faithful to this being the part of the tech ecosystem. It just has the ability to impact every aspect of the ecosystem that I think, until we sort of understand the macros and micros around AI, that there's probably that's the clearest trend of where we should be seeking growth right now.
Okay, perfect. And Shelby, I just really want to thank you for your time and for sharing all your insights. It's really so important. And I just have one last question for you. What legacy do you hope to leave in the tech and business world, and how do you want to be remembered?
Oh gosh, this is a tough question. I think I don't think a lot about legacy. So I think I'm just trying to do me and, you know, have a good day and have a good week and make some impact. I suppose my purpose, which is more how I think about it, is I feel very driven to create jobs for people who are a bit different than if I were,
Mhm.
if I looked different or if I was different,
Mhm.
I naturally by being, a female leader in tech, I end up hiring different people than someone else might. And to me, I suppose I find that very purposeful is to create jobs and just to create and to create sort of really, really amazing places to work is I suppose what drives me. I don't know if that really is a legacy or that I would even want to be the kind of person who thought about a legacy. I just don't think I am. But yeah, I suppose that's what drives me to keep going.
Yeah, that's a great answer. And Shelby, thank you so much for your time today. It's such an honor to be speaking with you. You've
What?
made such incredible contributions to the legal tech industry and have been such a strong advocate for innovation and transformation within the field. I really appreciate all your time you've taken today to share your insights and experiences.
Thank you for having me. I
Of
can't wait to
course.
watch your career.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Bye now.